Greetings and welcome back to Silent Hill Downpour with me, Solidus-Skully, and now we appear to be reliving some PlayStation 2 nostalgia in Henry Townsend's apartment, which was in, I think it was it South Ashfield? I can't quite remember, but anyway, it wasn't in Silent Hill, but whatever, it was a nice little Easter egg anyway. Even if you can't really enter any of the rooms and there's a door where the hole towards where Walter Sullivan's little alcove was? You know, whatever. Nowadays, it's time for optional side quests. Yay! Woo 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 woo, yeah. Also, DJ Ricks, so you can tell when this was recorded because if you access any of the radios after a certain point in the game where DJ Ricks is sadly taken from us, well, you kind of get some garbled demonic variant of what his radio transmissions are. I don't know, it's weird, and it does kind of bring to mind a little bit of the... I guess maybe what happens when people go against Silent Hill. I mean, they don't... Well, I mean, they die, obviously, but I guess they're just sort of becoming a part of the town itself? I don't know, it's something that Silent Hill has never really delved into, and something I would like to see expanded in a future game. Or comic or movie, but there are no future games, comics, or movies, so we are in quite the pickle where we lack any Silent Hill content. But you know what, whatever. We're just gonna keep on keeping on, despite the fact of everything. Anyway, I guess there's something to also discuss, really, in terms of side missions and the ones I'm going to be doing. There's only going to be 3 glaring omissions here, the first 2 of which being the painting side quest and the shadow sign side quest. Mainly because I feel that in terms of, intrinsic reward and what you get, in the game isn't really worth doing. And the third one of which, and one that actually does tie into one of the endings, is of course the what was it called again? The digging up the past side quest. Which only really relates to one, the joke ending, which replaces the UFO ending for every other Silent Hill game, but main reason why I'm doing that is because, I don't really think the side quest really amounts to much other than, oh gee, look at this familiar item from the series. This sure does look familiar. Tee-hee-hee. So yeah. Anyway, in regards to this side mission, it's basically, go toe-to-toe with a couple of monsters and, well, get some goodies, which mean usually in terms of what you're getting as a reward, you're mainly getting just things like, bullets and health packs, which might not sound like much, but as you will soon see later, there is a much greater reward to be found here if you're invested in the town of Silent Hill. That and also, getting bullets and health is always fun because, unlike Silent Hill Homecoming where guns are practically fucking useless, having ammunition and health is of great benefit to you in Downpour. I will say, though, that this side quest, in particular, does kind of border on the side of tedium, but at the same time, I think the reward makes it all the more worth it. And we will be getting to some of the more worthwhile rewards as we get onto other side missions. Because, not only do they pack some interesting content in terms of little side stories, they also kind of touch upon some stuff that could be expanded into Silent Hill games of their own, and especially one at the end, which I'll be pointing out when we get there. But of course, that remains to be seen. Hit! Oh, and by the way, I find it kind of ironic that the bank Murphy is being stopped by criminals who would otherwise be robbing a bank such as this. Well, presumably it'd be in, slightly higher quality, but you know what I mean. Well, I suppose technically Murphy is a criminal, so, it's just shades of grey around here. Looking at this game again and then also comparing it to Silent Hill Homecoming, I can't help but get the impression that this game's combat was much better refined. On the whole, again, I know in Silent Hill there's not really much of a competition, but, comparatively to the Team Silent games which use the Resident Evil tank control setup, I'd say Silent Hill Downpour comes close to it, I'd say. It's more to do with how the game is designed overall versus, what's functional, really. I don't really know how to put that in words, but I suppose I'll probably explain it if I ever get around to reviewing this game sometime down the line. See, look at how useful guns are. And you can also fire from the hip, which is, ironically enough, far more accurate than if you start aiming. Well, I suppose with guns, and if you do aim in, this style, you can aim for the head, which I'm pretty sure takes them down instantly. I know, it's been a while, as you can probably tell by the fact that there was a 2-week hiatus, which, indicates that this video is being recorded post-Japan trip, so if in case I ever get bored, well, I'll probably have something interesting to say about my trip, but hopefully it won't come to that, because you came here to listen about the game, not my pointless existence. Anyway, I think this should be about it. If not now, then this should be the last of it. Because I have to close the door so I can load the enemies in. Which is literally the only reason why I did that. And again, that was probably another example of enemies having that unavoidable spasm attack, for the lack of a better phrase, where you pretty much have no way of countering or blocking it. It's aggravating, and it's a part of the game's combat design which I do disagree with. But again, with guns, no real problem with it. Well, then again, that in tandem with the screamers that can kind of disorient you for a little bit, yeah, not really the best. But again, with the overpowered weapon that is the axe, and of course your pistol, you should be okay. But anyway, now that the threats are dealt with, we may now claim our prize. Hang on, just as long as we're walking on the railroad. There we go. The alarm is silent. And now, Leafy can claim his little reward for his little bank heist, you know, bada bing, boom, medicine stuff. And incidentally though, again, this bank probably is detailed to asset reusal to its most extreme with all the filing cabinets, desks, chairs, and doors that you've seen time and time again all throughout the game. Yeah, all these health packs, aren't they tasty? Anyway, in terms of loading transitions as well, I've also added in another side quest, which is the freeing the caged birds. I can't remember what the name is, but yeah, freeing them will show them little snippets of Murphy running across a very bright sunny day. You know, I wonder if I just use this as a thumbnail video and you'd mistake this for a horror game. I don't know, kinda like Silent Hill Shadow Memories and the cartoon toucan bird that looks like the Fruit Loops logo. Anyway, on to another side quest, which I won't be showing all of, but I will show you the intro of it. This is Homer. And if you look closely, he is actually a prisoner who escaped from the bus earlier on. But essentially, what you do for him is that you can gather a bunch of different items, like a jacket and, can't really remember what else you get him. But, yeah, you get him a couple of items, and he'll open up routes throughout the sewer, which you can use as a fast travel system. Which, again, means also bypassing monsters and basically getting around town pretty speedily, which is actually something I can praise about the game, because, I mean, unlike something like, say, what was it, Assassin's Creed 2, which tended to have you sort of teleport around the area, yeah, Silent Hill Downpour, you are legitimately travelling through the, subway system, so it makes for a nice incentive and a nice way of sort of connecting the world up in a way that feels natural. I mean, in Downpour's slight detraction, it does kind of also have that little transition where, you know, you walk into some fog, then it kind of fades away, and then it transitions you to the other area, but, you know what, I can accept that reasonably well enough because of the fact that it handles the transition occasionally, so whatever, apples and oranges, really. Oh, and by the time you finish this side quest, Homer's dead. How does he die? I don't know, but yeah, you can find his body, and that's kind of depressing. Anyway, we are on to another, one of my favourite side quests, actually. The Turn Back Time side quest, where you can go inside another apartment, and you get a very eerie atmosphere. And you can usually tell the apartments that you can enter by the fact that they have a light turned on. Even though it's like pitch darkness when you enter inside, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever, we're not here to question semantics. Nice picture of a portrait of an American family. Go inside and find some bloodied beds, you know, nothing to indicate there. So while we ransack their apartment, allow me to explain what goes on in this side quest. You will find a record and a bunch of other items. Put the record player together and play the record and you will see some very grim imagery, and I swear to God they reused that asset from the earlier motel scene where you could see the, you know, the little dog on the bed. They just removed the dog body and used the bed, so, yeah, nice way of reusing your assets there, Vatra. Now to put on the record, and we start doing some epwa. Now turn, Murphy, back in time to the beginning of the game. Save Charleston. What is this? It is a dead corpse, but what does it say? There's a message. Turn back time. And this is basically the crux of the entire puzzle. You get to uncover this woman's murder by turning back time. And as you can see here, he went up to the stairs to murder his children, And this, handsome individual had murdered his wife. For what reason? We don't know. But then again, we don't need to know, because, well, as you will soon see, he is a rather vengeful man, and even in death, his spirit is eternally angry. So now, we will return his wife to life! But of course, in doing so, we anger the spirit that is this guy that kind of reminds me of Dr. Kaufman from Silent Hill 1. And so, in order to vanquish the nightmares that this man has bestowed, we must set his portrait alight. Very awkwardly so, and I recommend you do so quickly because, yeah, his ghost will attack you, and it is quite painful. But after some stock Crash Bandicoot screams, his spirit is no more, and thus the victims can rest in peace. Ah, closure. And to your right, you can see Kyo Yasuda and Miyako Kaijiro from Forbidden Siren. Anyway, we now get to my next favorite side quest in the game, the cinema side quest, where basically Murphy taps into his inner Last Action Hero and enters the movie. Well, Last Action Hero Matrix Path of Neo, I'd say, because Neo and Seraph did that in one of the missions, which was quite strange. What am I talking about? I don't know. Go off and watch the commentary on the Matrix Path of Neo. Available also on this channel, because I am a whore. But anyway, to save a little bit of time here, I think you can see what I'm getting at here in terms of what sort of value you get out of the side quest. You get to see a bunch of different, you know, little bits and pieces of Silent Hill, which take a lot of locations, like, you know, the cinema right here, and the Turn Back Time side quest, and really put a spin on the whole concept. Like, I mean, you get a cool little set piece, and, you know, the intrinsic reward you get is mainly exploring the stories and the little side quests that you do throughout town. So it's not just bullets and ammunition that you get as a result of doing them. It's also, you know, I mean, besides completionist's sake, it's also just, you know, doing a bunch of cool little things, which is one thing that I can praise about the game, because unlike other games where it's pretty much just get X item to get money or, you know, extra ammunition or bullets or whatever, it does so in a way in which it feels like, you know, in context with the game's story, well, not necessarily in context with the game's story, but in context with, you know, the world around the game, it makes it feel cohesive. And that's something that I honestly think, you know, is a natural evolution to what, you know, Silent Hill 2 did, with how, while the game didn't explicitly focus on the cult or the town itself, you know, mainly in preference of James, Eddie, and Angela's story, for the lack of a better term, what Silent Hill Downpour does is that it takes, you know, a lot of the side stuff you could do in Silent Hill 2, like exploring, you know, some of the town history with the stuff that's eroded away and side documents and, you know, statues and locations around the town, and really expand upon it in, you know, more of a local sense. Like, you know, how the people who live in Silent Hill from their day-to-day lives deal with some of their problems with the bizarre shit they see. And to me, this is well, the one before, and the one we'll be getting to at the very end, is a clear-cut example of that. It might not be anything major, but, again, it's creepy and it works. And speaking of which, this is, whenever you enter the film segments, which, you know, have this lovely film grain over them, yeah, you get some fixed camera angles, which, again, looks incredibly creepy, and kind of surprised why companies don't do it, because it's a way of doing cinematic gaming without having to, you know, take control away from the player with, you know, slowly plotting cutscenes. Seriously, look at that. That is some fucking beautiful imagery right there. Also, and I'm pretty sure they also reused some of the assets from the Bogeyman arena fight, where you could see what I think is meant to be Murphy's house. I can't quite remember because it was nearby a lake area, but anyway, one thing I will say for Vatra Games is that, you know, when they had to reuse their assets, they for the most part did it pretty well. I mean, despite the fact that I think they did it a little bit too much, but then again, that isn't really saying much, because I mean, I was playing with the Resident Evil 2 remake recently, and yeah, that game had also had a nasty habit of reusing assets to a certain degree, which I think was kind of insane. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm always appreciative of game companies that try and make it a little bit more subtle or unique for each sort of area they're in. I don't know. I think it was something that was probably a little bit more excusable in the PS1, PS2 era, but you know, I think from 2009 and beyond, no real excuse for that sort of stuff. But anyway, as you can see here, we have 3 different films that we need to enter into in order to find more of the puzzle. And as you can tell by the little directions of the editing suite over there, yeah, we need to find the code which we can use to enter in, and of course cut together the movie as one complete package. But of course, our time was cut short inside the film world. Where's Arnold Schwarzenegger when you need him? And as you can see here, we can now demonstrate the power of a shotgun, which is one of the most useful weapons in the game. Don't expect to be keeping it for very long though, because, yeah, spoiler alert, we lose it shortly after this by reasons of, well, you know what, you'll see, because we do have a cutscene right at the end of this part, which, again, for those of you looking for story content and don't care about the side missions, then, yeah, skip to around the 25-minute mark, because that's, you know, where story content begins. That being said, though, I do still think the side missions are honestly one of the big highlights of Silent Hill Downpour. Like, I mean, again, it's nothing major, but it's something you can do if you want to, and honestly, if you can see here, and again, by the fact that I'm so positive about them, it really does demonstrate, you know, some of Silent Hill Downpour's creative side, in a similar vein to what you saw in the main story with the, Hansel and Gretel play, you know, where you tried to set up the stage and atmosphere, and then the whole stage play came to life. I don't know, it's the sort of creativity that I could see Team Silent also tapping into in a certain sense, and again, you know, had Silent Hill Downpour, I think, been given a bigger budget, or Vatra Games been given a fair shake of the tree, I think they honestly could have made a better Silent Hill sequel than, you know, what we've seen in the past, because, I mean, I think Downpour was a pretty decent attempt, but the support for it just wasn't there, and the fact that it was received so lukewarm, yeah, it pretty much caused Vatra Games to shut down, and most of their members are pretty much gone now, so sucks. Anyway, now that we have the code from the attic section, we can now finally get inside and cut this film together something fierce. Oh, and something I would also like to bring up, you actually are in real time when you're editing these key codes in. Because, I mean, there was actually one instance in the next section of the game where I, you know, started editing in the code, and basically what happened was a monster got me and killed me, so yeah, be on your guard. Primitive editing techniques. Well, I mean, I say that in jest, but I mean, there is actually some real skill to how films were edited back then. Crude as hell by our standards today, I mean, with, you know, computers and everything, but again, I think it is an art form that is appreciated, you know, with how you can cut celluloid together, and the way in which they sort of use editing techniques like, you know, fade transitions and, you know, all that sort of stuff to their fullest extent. Well, I mean, that and also rotoscoping and all that sort of stuff, but I don't know, it's interesting, man. Anyway, we must now enter the movie without a golden ticket. God, this imagery is fucking beautiful. Like, I mean, honestly, you could feasibly set up an entire survival horror game like this. I mean, they did back in years past, but I mean, you know, I'm curious. What is it really that alienates people to the tank control scheme and the fixed camera angles? I mean, I know a lot of people find tank controls clunky, but I mean, it is a mindset that you can kind of slip into. I mean, again, I mentioned this all the way back in, like, you know, part 1 and 2, but I mean, what is it about fixed cameras that throws people off? I don't get it. Like, I mean, there are moments in Silent Hill 4 and Devil May Cry where you can kind of, like, where you can kind of veer off the path where you don't want to go in certain aspects, but that's only really with an angle shift, which, you know, it isn't anything game-breaking or something that ruins the game. Jack-in-the-Box. My grandfather was killed by a Jack-in-the-Box. Well, that was a bit creepy. I don't know, I guess it's maybe just sort of people's mindsets, because, I mean, I guess maybe modern gamers of today might not be used to that sort of control scheme, but the thing of it is that, especially as you play games like, you know, Resident Evil or Silent Hill for a time, you start to get used to it. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't really buy the whole, you know, criticism of, I shouldn't have to get used to controls in order to play the game. I don't know, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the thing that people use to justify, like, Silent Hill, what was it? I think it was either Silent Hill Classics control scheme, in terms of its combat. It was like, oh, it's meant to suck on purpose because you're not a soldier or a fucking devil hunter or whatever, which I've always found to be a bit of a piss-poor excuse, mainly because I think that Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 control perfectly fine. Like, I mean, it's not the fact that the controls of combat sucks, it's the fact that it's a control scheme that works for what the game was designed around, so, I don't know. It's something that I definitely plan on deconstructing when I get around to looking at Silent Hill Homecoming at some point in the future, as much as it's going to kill me, because that game is sucky and scary, and it makes me want to end my existence. But anyway, we have to get out of here because the monsters are starting to become lively. As you can no doubt tell. Scary doors. Run away! But again, I completely forgot the name of the side mission. Yeah, you know what, whatever. I'm gonna call it the Last Action Hero side mission. It's one of my favourites, personally, and if you can probably tell by the atmosphere here, you can see why. Take this. I lament to fix camera angles, I shall call it. And now we go to a light affair. And I think you can possibly see what this is building up to, but you probably won't see that until the very end of the part, I should say. Now here we have the Telltale Heart side quest. At least that's what I think it is called, where apparently one of the prisoners from the bust escaped into here, played a card game with what I presume to be his inner demons, and they tore out his heart. Now, you have to retrieve it, which is locked in a jar somewhere, and you have to give it to him. All the while, Murphy is being chased by monsters. I mean, this is one that does kind of border on the side of tedious, which is a criticism that I can give to some side missions, is that some side missions are clearly better than others, but I mean, on the whole, you know, the ambience is good. And plus it's very claustrophobic and keeps you on your toes, so on the whole, don't really have a problem with this. In fact, honestly, I would like to see a Silent Hill story behind this guy. What was this guy's story? Because, I mean, we know for a fact that given that, you know, there's Homer and, you know, the Mexican dude, you know, people did escape from the bus crash reasonably unscathed, so, you know, couldn't they have some Silent Hill comics dedicated to them? I mean, Anne Cunningham did have her own little side story, which I'm only willing to bet was only given a comic because of the fact that, you know, during the beta conceptions of Silent Hill Downpour, this was meant to be a co-op game. So, I mean, whether this meant that, you know, Murphy and Anne were stuck together from the beginning, you know, in a similar case to, you know, Point Man and Fettle for 3R, or if it was just, you know, tackle one story and then tackle the other, or you could have Murphy and Anne together simultaneously. I'm not entirely sure, but, I mean, Anne's story was kind of detailing some of the plot... Well, not necessarily the plot holes, but some of the gaps in the writing that Silent Hill Downpour was trying to fill up, mainly in terms of Anne's backstory, what happened to DJ Ricks, and, well, basically a lot of the backstory regarding certain characters in the game, particularly ones related to Frank Coleridge and George Sewell. But anyway, we've recovered this dude's heart, we've escaped from the monsters, and now we shall returneth his heart. Yeth, he will know his heart again, and feel the love that his heart provides. Again, I'm pretty much just putting filler commentary at this point, because the next one I actually would like to talk to, and it is actually by far one of the darkest side quests in the game. And one that actually might border on slightly offensive, because I don't really see a game like Silent Hill Downpour getting away with something like this today, but honestly, I'll leave you to judge that for yourself as soon as we see it. And again, it is one that I actually did kind of edit together pretty hard, so I won't really have a lot of time to talk about it, because we do also have a cutscene coming up right at the very end, but again, let's just dive into this. Now, as you can see right here, yeah, there is a missing persons poster, and you can also see, yeah, a little direction where this autistic child, I'm pretty sure it was a girl actually, was basically being forced to follow these directions by virtue of the ribbons. Yellow ribbons means follow this, and basically, corresponding to certain colours, one colour says no, but one colour says yes, and as you can see, yeah, the ribbons are leading her down this pier, and you can probably tell what happened here. The girl followed the directions, and, she drowned. You find this key, and, we're about to find out the revelations to what happened.
I think this is an address in town.
Now, I'm guessing this girl was probably more on the severe side of the autistic spectrum, from what I can guess. I don't really have a lot of knowledge on this subject, so I feel very uncomfortable talking about it, but yeah, we can now see the mother's reasons for doing it, where she drowned her child because she couldn't take it anymore, she didn't like being judged, and this hassle is all something that I think would touch on an all-too-real nerve, which, yeah, I can honestly foresee a Silent Hill game being based entirely on this, but again, you know, considering how things are today in this generation, I don't really see that flying over well, so I think I'll leave it up to you, the viewer, to determine how you feel about this side quest. So, to kind of change things up onto a little bit of a lighter note, Let's just see Murphy with Charlie here, and you know what? I'll leave you on that. Enjoy the cutscene, and I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and I will see you next time for the final section of the Silent Hill Downpour commentary. Catch you later.
You gotta be kidding me.
Did you really think it could end like this?
After everything you saw back there, everything we've been through, you think going back to prison is all that's at stake here?
We're not going to Wayside.
What are you saying?
Turn the boat around.
Are you out of your mind? We're free. When we reach the opposite shore, I'll go one way, you can go the other. It's that easy.
We've got unfinished business, you and I.
I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, and honestly, I don't care anymore. There is no way in hell I'm going back.
It wasn't a request.
We've both just been through hell. Haven't you been paying attention?
No, you haven't been paying attention. You think this is all an accident? Just a big coincidence? This town, it knows me. It showed me things. It wants me to finish this. Don't you understand? It'll never let us go until we finish what we started. What you started.
I told you. I'm not going back. You might as well shoot me.
Fine.
How's it going, Murph? Heard you're gonna be leaving us soon.
What do you want, Sewell?
You weren't thinking of leaving before you paid back my favor, were you?
Napier.
What am I talking about? Of course you're gonna keep your end of the deal. You're a real stand-up guy, Murphy. Parole report says so right there in black and white. A model prisoner, right? Sure would be awful if they found out about what you did to that child buggering bastard, though, wouldn't it? I mean, shit. That would ruin everything, wouldn't it?
What do you want me to do?
What you're good at, of course. Ridding the world of monsters. I got another one for you.
Who is it?
Don't worry yourself about the details, Cupcake. Just take out the garbage like you did before and we'll be square.
When?
There's gonna be a little disturbance tonight. The other guards and me are gonna have our hands full, so no one's gonna notice when you head down to the showers and find your guy waiting there, just like last time.
And then?
Oh, I think you know what comes next. Unless, of course, you're thinking of breaking our deal.
And this other guy? He deserves it?
Oh, Murph, you have no idea how bad he deserves it. Hell, I only wish I could do it myself. So, what do you say, Cupcake? You gonna play ball?
I'll take care of it.